Hi, I'm NERINA Palloot and you're watching me on What You Got. I started work on it, well, some of the songs I wrote about 18 months ago, but the actual recording process was really fast. I started it in August 2010 and it was pretty much done by the end of September, October, just a few tweaks here and there. Year of the Wolf is my 4th album, so I'd like to think that by now I might have learned how to write songs. When I listen to some of my first album, I'm like, oh my god, what was I thinking? You know, it's just like, you don't need to put 15 chords in one song. So I think the songwriting has hopefully reached the best songwriting I can do. And I've also realised over the years that people kept coming up to me at gigs and saying, why don't you make an album that's more like you live? I really miss the directness of you in the show. On record, you've never captured that. So I think the way we made it was we cut a lot of the album live. And hopefully that comes through. A lot of the vocals are one takes, some of the tracks are completely, the whole lot were recorded in one go. And that was what I was striving for really, was just directness. Put it back together again, I definitely wrote for me. It was, my dad was having major surgery and I couldn't think straight. I was so worried about father, and put it back together again. I wrote while I was waiting for my mum to call me and tell me that my dad had come out of surgery okay. And it was the only way I could stop being a head case in the corner. And I could never sing that song. I would get too choked up. Sometimes I go to sing it and I fall apart. But it really worked for Diana because I think she had that step of removal, so she managed to get the heart of the emotion without over-egging it, I think. So that was definitely one of my songs for me, I think. Better Than Today was meant to be the first single off The Graduate, and then Kylie heard it, and then that started the working relationship. And one of the songs that came out of working with her was Aphrodite, which I totally wrote for her. That's not one of my songs in that sense. But there is me in there, because there's lots of the sort of melodic things I do. But that song came about from having a conversation with her about claiming her iconic status.
Yeah.
Because I'd never felt that on previous albums she'd ever gone the whole hog and gone, guess what, I'm Kylie, you know, in the way that Beyonce does or Christina Aguilera might do. The Americans are really good at doing that. They seem to have no sort of sense of like their ego's out of control. They're like, fuck it, I've got a huge ego. Whereas Kylie is too sort of like wry to do that. And I wanted to give her something really bombastic.
Were you aware that she's going to call her album Aphrodite at the time?
No, I only found out when I went to listen to the whole album. I went over to Stuart Price's studio to hear the final mixes, and he said, oh, and the album's going to be called Aphrodite. I was like, really? how random and mad.
What are your thoughts on illegal downloads, and do you download music illegally?
I don't actually, because I feel quite strongly about it. But I do think that consumers have been taken for a complete ride for years. You know, the whole CD thing with like 10 tracks, one of which is worth price. I think CDs have to come down. I think we should just have a blanket cost of like £4 or £5 for an album. I think the labels have themselves to blame slightly in that they should gang up on iTunes and say, right, you either buy 2 tracks from an album or you buy the whole thing. There's not this track by track by track by track thing. But that's me. That's my generation, isn't it? I like albums, and I think you should pay for things. I wouldn't go to Woolworths. Well, Woolworths doesn't exist anymore. I wouldn't go to Sainsbury's and nick pasta and pasta sauce and wander out. But yeah, people who wouldn't do that will go and nick a track.
Yeah. How did it personally make you feel that your album's already leaked before its official release date?
Well, it's inevitable. I would be worried if people didn't leak it, because it would mean nobody was interested.
Yeah.
So you have to look at leaking as kind of a sign of interest. What I really object to is not so much the leaks, but the people who get the promos and sell it on eBay to fans for like 25 quid. I just think, you tosser. You're ripping off fans, and it's really not on. They're the ones I get annoyed with, and I frequently write to them myself and go, hello, it's me. stop selling my record illegally. And 9 times out of 10 are really embarrassed and they remove it immediately and they send you a note saying I'm sorry. That's what I object to. The album's out on June the 13th, and if you're an old fart like me, go and buy it, and if you're not an old fart like me, then you'll probably be illegally downloading it and I can't stop you anyway.
Thank you.